Trinity Trigger arrives on the Switch and I've been excited for this release ever since its announcement. It has a team with some serious pedigree behind it, and it promises to be 90s influenced with some modern twists, and it clearly takes inspiration from Secret of Mana, which is always going to be a good thing. Can this action RPG, however, deliver an experience that is worth playing? Well, that's what I'm here to find out. My name's Alex, so this is SwitchCorner. Let's get started. If you enjoyed the video today, consider subscribing, helps out the channel a huge amount. The story takes place in Trinitia, where the gods of order and chaos engaged in a fierce battle that resulted in humans being chosen as their warriors. This led to a great deal of bloodshed. Now we quickly meet Cyan, the protagonist of the game, who was born with a mysterious red glowing eye that caused his family to abandon him. Now he grows up in a different world because of this, scavenging for valuable items in dangerous locations to care for himself and his stepsister. However, his peaceful life is interrupted when Elise arrives and reveals that the red symbol on his eye means he's been chosen as a warrior of chaos, putting him in danger from assassination. Cyan sets out with Elise to defy fate, potentially end the war, and discover more about his own past. So the core party consists of 3 likeable characters, Cyan, Elise and Zantis, and their accompanying triggers. These are small creatures that can transform into weapons, and they add both context to offense and humour to the story thanks to their ability to talk. Unfortunately though, after these introductions, the story definitely struggles to escalate the offense, and I never felt like the world was really changing or that I was in immediate danger. The story heavily relies on the gimmick of searching for new transformations for our triggers to assist us in war, but it doesn't lead to a sense that the story is progressing significantly. It led to an ending that felt okay, but overall it did not stand out. To be upfront, Trinity Trigger is relatively basic as far as genre entries go, and it's also much shorter than many out there. I completed the story in fact in around 12 to 15 hours, even with quite a few of the side missions done as well. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as it was refreshing to have an RPG that didn't demand weeks of my time. This might be a perfect option for those that want something more bite-sized in nature. Now in my opinion, the control scheme and system setup, they do enough to keep things interesting throughout the journey, just by constantly introducing new systems or weapons. When it comes to the navigation, then Trinity Trigger offers nothing more than basic movement and an interact button, especially in these town encounters. And generally, like the town design in Trinity Trigger, with each location, such as swamps, forests and lakes, having enough variety to keep me interested. While it's not necessary immediately as well, in the back half of the game you'll want to make use of the available resources, including stores to buy and sell items, an inn to rest and recover, and a blacksmith that can add buffers to our trigger weapons and craft. However, one element that makes the game unnecessarily awkward at times is going to be its underwhelming map system. Sometimes it tells you basically where to go with a gold flag, other times you must figure it out for yourself. I could understand this approach for dungeons, but not in the general world. It's one of those games that says go southeast, but there are about 15 different exits in that direction, leaving you with a moment of trial and error until a cutscene kicks in or a gold flag appears. Fortunately, the world is small, so it never really got in the way of my progression, but it can be more annoying than anything else. I had great fun then as well with the dungeon crawling in Trinity Trigger. However, I would argue that they are a little repetitive in their design, and the game could have ramped up the environmental puzzles earlier. The first half is relatively easy before it starts to actually challenge the player. Combat is not just restricted to dungeons as well, but any area that is outside of a town. This is really where the control scheme starts to evolve, with the addition of dodge rolling and leveraging weapons. With the promise of triggers that can transform into 8 weapons as well, I was worried about the game forcing me to sit in menus, but it's handled well with a quick access wheel. This is also accompanied then by an item wheel with health restores and buffers that you can purchase or find around the world. The dungeons in Trinity Trigger though are full of items that you can destroy for pickups, think hidden areas as well and treasure chests. However, towards the end game some of these chests do become enemies. Gotta admit, felt a little bit cheap at times, delivering unexpected damage against you and really for very little reason. The game also allows players to switch and control different characters as they please, which is always a system I like to see, even if the majority of my time was controlling Cyan. What's most interesting is that it features 2-player support, and this becomes available about an hour into the game once you do meet the entire party. Its restriction though to local play only definitely was a little disappointing. Many players then will be drawn to Trinity Trigger for its combat system, and in that sense it does deliver. The triggers provide a satisfying selection of weapons, with each character playing into specific elements, so some will be stronger or weaker against different enemy types. The combat is varied, and you can see damage points with each attack. The colour of the point represents if the attack is strong or weak against that particular enemy. Characters also then have a basic attack that is attached to a stamina meter that you must manage. Now if the meter empties, you can actually still attack, but do not expect to be delivering any damage, so you do need to keep a close eye on this. You can upgrade all attacks as well by leveling your trigger, which is automatic, and then you'll be using something called a trigger points. Now you can do this leveling up at shrines that act as save points, restore points, and fast travel locations. The biggest move, however, is going to be called the Trinity Impact. This requires all 3 characters to be active in battle, and once activated it delivers a dramatic animated move that can often end the life of your foes. Just consider this basically your team special move. It's worth noting in battle as well, you can set party members to use items automatically. I would strongly recommend this so they do not fall in battle. Should they fall and die, they cannot fight, but you will see a ghost form following behind you. This signifies that you may want to use an item to revive them. Generally, your party as well acts as you would expect, and they do some decent damage. However, I did notice that they rarely change weapons, so I had to do that on their behalf when I did notice a weakness. Additionally, during exploration, some things can hurt you. Think spikes in the floor and cacti, and the party members constantly walk into them, taking damage. I think this sort of damage should have been restricted to the party leader only, because it feels cheap and it is completely out of your control. As you do succeed in battle as well, you'll be leveling up, noted as a white bar above your character icon. You can also be impacted, such as things as poison and other status effects, also noted down here. Boss encounters then are mostly enjoyable as well. However, by the end game they do become frustrating because they follow the exact same pattern, that is, attack them until their armor drops, then you get a brief moment to damage their health bar. It then restores and you must repeat, but by the end game, some of these bosses just take forever because the armor is so strong. I wish they'd been a little more creative with the defeat requirements. A final system worth noting is the weapon aura, which is a simple meter you build up and activate for extra power. I highly recommend using it, and I regret not leveraging it enough in the early game. Overall, for gameplay, look, it's not perfect as you can see, but I still did have a lot of fun. I want to make that clear. I thought the combat system was rewarding, I enjoyed the exploration in the world, and this was through all of its shortcomings. Also, the short nature of the design was refreshing, and the constant evolution in systems meant I was always excited to see what came next. Visually, Trinity Trigger is a mixed bag. While I enjoyed some aspects of it, it's easy to see the budget nature of the production with heavy pixelation throughout and also a lack of detail in many areas. The game goes for this cartoony aesthetic, which can work, but I think it requires a bit more sharpness than what the game manages. Dungeon layouts as well are relatively basic texture swaps throughout. However, the enemy and the boss design is top quality, and I really enjoyed the different attack animations that the game features. Cutscenes mostly consist of static talking moments, but the character models here, they're hand-drawn and they look stunning. They are fully demonstrated during the occasional animated sequence, which I do wish the game featured more of. My final issue with the visuals is that while the UI is well done and easy to understand, damage numbers can get in the way of understanding what is happening when there are a lot of enemies on screen, and this is problematic when you're required to dodge roll from attacks. Moving on to audio, I generally have good things to say here. While I wouldn't say the soundtrack is going to be among the greats, it still features more than a few moments where it will make you pay attention, from themes for towns to dungeons to boss encounters, and likewise the sound effect field is respectable with a focus on the different weapons. Each one sounds heavy though, and I particularly enjoyed the design around enemies. Finally, the voice acting features both Japanese and English for the key cutscenes, and that delivery there is well done. My only audio complaint is that in battle, these characters say small snippets, and it's the same thing over and over. Gets incredibly annoying. I wanted to turn this off, but you cannot do that. It is linked to general voice acting, and I wish they had separated this out in the menu so we had the option. Overall, Trinity Trigger was quite a bit shorter than I expected. It also has its fair share of issues, but honestly, I still had a lot of fun with it. The combat is satisfying, the enemy design is often unique, and there's some creative systems in here that are fun plays on what we've seen from the genre before. Now, problems and some unusual design elements, and the story can't quite deliver on its promising premise. That said though, I still couldn't put the game down, and I wanted to see this adventure through. Today, it's a good 7 out of 10 from me. Just anticipate having to be a little forgiving at moments to truly make the most of this world. So will you be checking out Trinity Trigger then? Let me know in the comments. I'm sure reviews with this one are going to be all over the place, but this is one I hope to see more from in the future. So with that, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, news and lists daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.